And we are back. Welcome to the Roasted and Barreled review for our fifth season and our first installment of the Summer of Scotch. That's right. For this season, we are just going to be reviewing coffee pairings with Scotch whiskeys only. We're going to be talking and learning about scotches. We're going to be drinking scotches. We're going to be analyzing the Scotch whiskey culture. It's going to be a lot of fun. But first, what is Scotch? Scotch whiskey is whiskey that is made in Scotland. According to the literal definition by UK law, United Kingdom law, to be a Scotch, it must be a product of Scotland. One of the territories, you got Scotland, Wales, England, Ireland, and I think that's it out of the United Kingdom. So it must be a product of Scotland. It must have malted barley. What is malted barley? Well, it is barley, and the malting process is kind of like you're watering a grain to let it know it should grow. But then you're saying, just kidding, and you're drying it out. So you're allowing those sugars for the growth of a plant to be released, but you're not allowing it to grow into a plant. It must be distilled at 94.8% ABV. What this means is its strength. It's almost pure alcohol. It's 199.6 proof of alcohol. It has to be aged at least 3 years. You'll see this in bourbon too. It's really to get those flavors of the wood and in the changing of season. But in Scotland, you really don't have that much changing of the season there. Now, there's different kinds of Scotch whiskey. You got the single malt. Now, single malt doesn't mean like it comes from one specific type of malt. It just means that it comes from one distillery and it's in pot stills only. If you know the whiskey making process, there's pot stills and then there's column stills. These are in pot stills. They're a little bit harder to clean, but they create a unique flavor that people find desirable. You also have single grain. It doesn't mean malted barley. It just means that it has one grain. That could be wheat, that could be rye. One of the cereal grains, I think corn's in there. And so that'll give you your single malt. Blended Scotch. You're going to notice that like when they have blended Scotch, it's not like blended bourbon where they're taking a bunch of barrels and mixing everything together. Blended Scotch is they're not just taking different whiskeys from different barrels. They're taking different whiskeys from different distilleries. And one of the big blenders is actually Johnny Walker, probably the largest whiskey maker in the world. And then from there you can go down into other different subcategories: blended Scotch, blended malt Scotch, blended grain Scotch, and blended Scotch. Blended malt Scotch being single distillery, single with a single malt with a single malt. Blended grain, it means basically two non-single malts mixed together. And then there's blended Scotch, which is blended grain with single malt. And you cannot move a barrel of Scotch out of the country. That is pretty interesting. So why do you have this? You have these regulations and these stipulations. First, with the product of Scotland, you have it because of marketing. It gives the government control over the distillers, and it gives the distillers influence on the government to go after certain people, because you want control of the product. You can't have somebody from, say, India or Germany claiming that they're making Scotch. There's not going to be legitimacy there if the Scottish government's not going to recognize you. So what they're doing is they are having one grand arm to control themselves and each other. How does that make sense? The distillers are bonding together to create a control arm, or to allow some control arm influence. So like the government. So if something goes afoul, they can report to it. And then the government is happy to take this additional power because they're getting money to run themselves and to operate from the distillers. So no free lunches there. Anyways, looking at today's pairing, we have Monkey Shoulder blended Scotch whiskey, and we have Amaya Haro Welabu. I'm not even sure I even pronounced that right. Haro Welabu coffee out of Houston, Texas. First with the Monkey Shoulder. The Monkey Shoulder is a blended Scotch whiskey, which means they are taking whiskeys from different distilleries and mixing them together. It is, I'd say, uniquely marketed to be a mixing whiskey. Not a lot of people want to suck up their pride and be known as a whiskey that you'd mix into everything else. You'd want to create a product, or if you were a distiller, you'd want to be known for creating a product that could be drinking pure on the rocks with no additives. Like, your product is good to stand alone. But Monkey Shoulder takes a unique approach in claiming themselves as a mixing whiskey, which may be good for this episode. I noticed that Monkey Shoulder was very sweet, almost pear-like, extremely smooth, but it is lighter than I expected. I came into this expecting smokiness and a little like tequila flavor. At least that was my preconception with Scotch, but I started with Johnny Walker Red, so maybe that was a mistake. But anyways, how I feel about this, it's not bad, it's not great. I'm getting a little harsher this season, so I'm going to give this a try rating. You should definitely check it out. It's got a unique name. It's called Monkey Shoulder because of an ailment that distiller or malters would get. Remember, malters are the people that wet down and then dry out the malted grains. As they are raking the malts to make sure that they get dry, they would get like a hurt shoulder or something where they couldn't move the shoulder that they were raking with. So that's why it's called Monkey Shoulder. Now, Amaya Coffee, this one is very sweet. If Fruity Pebbles were a coffee, this would be it. What specific fruit? I don't know. It just feels like all of them. Very smooth. I think it's for certain occasions, but definitely worth trying it out. I'm going to give this one a buy rating. Now, for the pairing together, I definitely think that these two shouldn't go together. It's far too sweet. You can barely tell the whiskey's in there. And if you can't tell that the whiskey's in there, why bother even trying to mix it? Like, we're looking for something new where you can't go full whiskey, but you don't want to just go with coffee. So with this, I definitely think that they just aren't meant to be. So that concludes our first episode of the Summer of Scotch. We got 3 more coming your way, and we're excited to bring this with you. Please like and subscribe to this channel and this video. To help us out, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks.